friends, MD Vegan with a cheese recipe. Yeah, today I combined two different nuts and seeds. I have cashews and sesame seeds, and I soaked 1 cup of each overnight. And the sesame seed has even been sitting in the fridge for another day. So you see, the volume is higher now as it begins already to sprout. And we can do that because sesame seed, like all the other seeds, they would enhance their nutrient density. So it's a very good idea if you have extra time or happen to have one day just to do something else. Let it sit in the fridge. First I wash it after the soaking, take the water, rinse it, and then I put it into a sealed container in the fridge. And then it begins to sprout in the fridge, even a little bit only. If you sprout it too much, the flavor could tend to be too bitter. Now be careful with the sprouting. When I want to eat it, the sprouts, for these kind of purposes, the sprouts can be minimal. Just breaking through, that's enough. So I will put this now, both of the nuts, into a blender. And put some water, just a little bit to make the blender work, and then I make the cheese. Cheese making actually is pretty easy. There are different ways to make a cheese. I talk now of fermented cheese. That is the regular way to talk about cheese, but you can also, of course, make cheese with other tools, other tricks. Using algae or binder to make the cheese-like texture. But I think the flavor and the fermenting process is so characteristic for the cheese. So I mostly do fermented cheese. And there are many ways of doing fermentation. You can do self-fermentation. That means you don't put anything, you just put it into the fridge, seal it, and wait after soaking. It has to be a little wet. And then it begins to ferment. Takes the 3 or 4 days, begins, and gets sour. And then you can just blend it up and have a cheese when the nuts or the seeds have already been sour. The problem is when you do self-fermentation that you cannot control the bacteria cultures you use. And there we are here, where I do now. I bought the bacteria cultures for now, for this time, in the pharmacy. I have these here. This is in Germany, for example. You can get that in Germany, and I guess internationally, and they have this kind of product also online. But the most important, whatever product you take, and I took this here while it's less expensive than if you take the probiotics, the capsules in the health food shops or so. They're very expensive, and this here, that keeps for over a year. This is only 30 grams, and it's so inexpensive. It's 30 euros or so, 25 euros, and it keeps a long time. But you only need a little bit. And important is that you have different bacteria cultures. And here we come to the critical question in the fermenting of cheese. They have thousands of years experience and have their own tricks. And we will, of course, want vegan fermentation, so bacteria only. The other things like mushrooms or so might be critical, or there are even animal-based products that go into fermentation. But we don't use that here. Just bacteria is for my favorite. It's a favorite. You're a little bit limited there because other kind of fermentation can have different effects, but I just begin and explore the variety of cheese making with the plants, and this is very interesting because there are so many different variations. For example, there are now combined cashews, a little sweet, and sesame seed, a little bit stronger flavor. Very interesting new flavor exists, and we didn't have that flavor before. I mean, before we get into the plant cheese, yeah. So that is interesting for me. And fermentation, well, it's another story. But here, for the bacteria, I have a lactobacillus, it's called, and this is typical for making cheese. You can have otherwise other kinds of bacteria cultures you can buy. There are 6 different kinds of bacteria in there. I get the lactobacillus, it's pretty important, and I have bifidus, different bifidus, short, long, brevis, longis, and there are different names. They are all crazy Latin names. You don't need to know, but you can look it up and find the one you have at your availability. There have to be certain kinds of bacteria that are better for different kinds of cheeses. I have this here is pretty helpful for me. And to ferment it, you also have to know when you have this powder, the bacteria culture comes in the powders here. Yeah, this kind of powder, white powder, like a flour almost. This is maybe not. This is not even a half a teaspoon. It's a third of a teaspoon only. Yeah? That's important because if you take too much of the bacteria cultures, the flavor of the cheese will change. It can get tart, bitter, too strong, whatever. And that is, yeah, you begin with a little bit, that's really enough. And you see, I needed just a small quantity, and it goes a long way. This, yeah, that takes ages. The bacteria are really tough guys. They don't die that easily. They just keep. They sit still without water. They sit still and do nothing. It hasn't to be too warm, of course. Happy guys, and they come up later. They are not animals. They are just one cell. Yeah, that's the first form of a life, I guess. The bacteria also. The virus are even not cells. They're only the inside of the cell. So there are different kinds of life forms we have, but that is another story now. Bacteria are not animals. That's most important for us. They are not plants. They are on their own. The first forms of a life there is among the first. I guess that was on the biological book. I know. So I have to put some water now into my nuts and bacteria, and of course, I have to do only a little bit. I begin with less maybe than I would need, because if it's too much, then I have too much water in the cheese, and then it will not be so easy to get it out again. I show you later about that in a moment. Just now, beginning with a little bit. That's maybe half a cup, maybe a little bit more. Because I've soaked it before, it's easier now. Yeah? And because the nuts and the seeds are already soft, easier to blend. The blender blends will take a little bit further. Wait for a while blending, and it would work. Here you see there's a little bit of the seeds is on top here, and it would be pulled down. It seems to be pretty okay, the quantity of the water. Maybe take a little bit more, but it will help to turn it over with a little scraper here. Oh, the texture is very nice. I like it. It's not too runny. Yeah, I guess it works. I will try to use this amount of water here in this batch. And we'll see if it works. Otherwise, I can put some little bit more water, more water, and then the cheese will be a little bit softer. I'll tell you later about that. So try again if that works now. Inside has to move, and it's still not moving, so I have to help it again, because in the blade below at the bottom there it happens very easy that the air bubble is pulled down, and the air bubble sits above the blade, between the blade and the mass and the dough, and then it won't really blend. But you have to have this flow, the constant flow, permanent flow from above, below, and above, below. That's what we want in the blender. And the air bubble, when it is too dry, then the air bubble builds, the air is sucked down, and the blends don't blend anymore. So if you let just a little bit more water, maybe it works now. Let's see. happens like this, yeah, it is also good to know what to do. That's why I didn't turn off the video. I think it's important because these things, you don't do that though so often to make cheese, I guess, and I don't know what to do also. So this is what I have now. I let it blend for a while because I really want that smooth texture. It's very important for the cheese to have a really blended creamy texture. At the same time, not too much water, as I said before. Now this is okay. Yeah, I don't need to taste it. Yeah, it's all perfect. It's just the nuts and the seeds, yeah, and a little bit of the probiotics. Just a very little amount, just for the bacteria to work. They won't change the flavor by themselves. They will change the flavor when it gets sour. When they ferment, after 24 hours, I can do the next thing. So what I do now is I put it into a container, into containment, where it can sit for 24 hours in a warm place. And what I have here, I always have this two fitting tools, the little, and a little sieve on top. A bowl, a little sieve that fits together. So I put in the cheese in here. The water can fall through, and it will be here. I can drink it or throw it away, doesn't matter. And for the cheese not to fall through the sieve, I have a cheesecloth here. And this is the size I have here. You can buy that here in Germany, or maybe you have it. It's in a linen cloth. It's pretty fine, fine linen, very simple. And it's it can nicely be used for the cheese because the water goes through, but the cheese stays in here. And I will put it in half, as you see, and put one half of the cheesecloth over my sieve, my colander, like this. Then there's a little hole here, a little mold, and a little hole, not a mold, a hole, a little cavity. And I put some water onto the cheesecloth because the cheesecloth should be a little bit wet. That makes it nicer. Then it won't take the cheese away, the cheese flavor away, into the texture, into the material. So a little bit, always with filters. And you filter something, it's always nice to have the filter a little bit wet. So the water I put away again. Don't need the water anymore, just to moisten a little bit the cheesecloth, that's all. Now it is more neutral. It's easier. So this is what I do now. I put here the cheese, the pre-cheese, into the cheesecloth. A little scraper. I can smell a wonderful fragrance. The sesame seeds are very healthy. They are full of wonderful minerals. And there's also fat in there, and so many wonderful protein, of course. This is a very healthy product. The cheese, very, of course, very expensive also. I don't eat cheese all the time. It's something very special for me, and I can use it in different recipes also. I can use it in dressings or just as is on cracker. I filled it up all into the cheesecloth, and now I'll show you what it looks like. Here, this will be the final state when it is set to ripen, now to ferment for 24 hours. What I did is now, I folded the cheesecloth and put, I put a little table onto it to press it down. See this little table? This is the right size for this quantity of cheese. You have to find the right size for you because it has to press down the cheese. And I folded the tablecloth, the cheesecloth like this. Here, I show you. I folded it to put it like a lid onto the cheese. Here, the cheese begins to ferment already and getting warm already. I can feel it. And you just put the other half of the cheesecloth on top, so it can be covered, and then the little animals cannot fly inside. And then you put that on top. And afterwards, you put, for example, something with a weight, a water container or something, have a big bottles on top to press it together. The water can go out, run out. Down here, you don't need that anymore, or you can enjoy it. It's also nice to drink it. It's healthy. because bacteria in there. And yeah, after 24 hours I will come back and show you how I proceed, seasoning everything. See you in a bit. Here is my little construction, 24 hours later, más o menos, more or less. And I show you what I have now. Here is still the little plate as a lid to press it down. Yeah. And the water can be collected here. That's just what are left from the cheese water. And that is very healthy actually. I could drink that now. I won't do that now, but I can do that later. It's full of bacteria, healthy bacteria, fermentation water. I could also use it to make the next batch of cheese. That's also possible. So whatever, it's very healthy also for the digestion, and it tastes a little bit sour, but it's okay, it tastes good. So here the cheese is my little lid. I put it up, and you see the cheese here. It's a very nice texture now, light, and I have to stir a little bit and to put the salt in, so in order to make the cheese a little bit more tasty and more durable. Yeah, it is going to ripen now. I will put it in a ring mold, and then it's going to ripen. Yeah. Show you in a moment. So, but first, here's a little bowl, and I can take out the cheese easily with that cloth, and let it fall into the bowl. And then I have a little spoon here, and we'll scrape the rest down. And here the cloth is pretty wet now, of course, because the water from the cheese has been soaked into the textiles. Yeah. The cheese now is more dry than before, and the water is going out. And if you want to press it, yeah, you can even make a harder cheese. That's also what they do. They press the cheese to make it hard. Yeah. For now, I just need this kind of cheese. That's enough. You see the texture for now. The texture is like this, pretty fluffy. It's already a cheese now. And I put some salt and some cayenne pepper in. Can you see? Salt, only half a teaspoon each for this amount of cheese. And don't use more salt and no more cayenne pepper. It is cashew and sesame. And with lemon I wouldn't use it, because lemon might make it bitter. I tried that before. But you can also use salt and paprika. That would be also nice. Or other spices. If you have any inspiration, you can try and let me know. I just tried the paprika and the cayenne, and both very nice. Yeah, this time I chose the cayenne pepper. So guys, now I have to fold it in. Everything has been mixed evenly, and by stirring a little bit with a fork, the cheese will also changes texture. By the fermentation, the air is going through every part of the cheese, yeah, and it makes it big. By stirring it, it gets firmer. The air gets out. That's why the texture changes a little bit. Yeah. It's like pressing it together. You will see in a moment. Now taste it, if it's the right quantity of salt and cayenne. Well, I take a half teaspoon of each more, so half teaspoon salt. So it's total a full teaspoon of salt, and also a full teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Yeah, I made this cheese for the first time now, so then you always have to check if it is the right amount. I was just guessing from my experience on the other cheeses before, and I always begin with a little less. That is safer. Otherwise, when you spoil the cheese by putting too much spices in there, especially salt, can be very unpleasant, and then you spoil it all. So I now try it one more time. Let's see. Yeah, now we're getting there. Yeah, that's nice now. That's nice. It's very nice in the background. A little bit cayenne, not hot, not really hot. That gives a little bit a tinge. Yeah. Here, I'll show you what it looks like. And that I will put now into ring mold. Back in a sec with the ring mold. I'll show you. Here's one of my ring molds. I have several shapes out. They always come in different forms. This is the size. It's nice. It fits a nice portion of cheese. I make these kind of cheeses here. They can be kept in the refrigerator. I'll show you in a moment how I would do that. But first now I will take my spoon again and spoon it into the ring until it's full. And then I have some more cheese left for another ring, for next ring. But you don't need to watch every little detail, just how it works. One ring would be enough, and the rest, I guess you can figure out that by yourself. Of course. So one ring here, and film it. This would be what I do now. And so I show you. And this goes into the fridge now, and it would like this, yeah. And you see, and if I let it sit for 2 days or so, it will be firm. I can take it off, and it will keep together as one firm piece. You can also cut it then. But now it's a little bit soft, as it's cashew cheese. Macadamia cheese would be ready immediately. If you want to process it, get a little bit faster, you can always freeze it. You could freeze it, for example, and then you can take it off immediately, and it will not get softer again. Yeah? And it will thaw again, but it will not get softer like it is today, because the ripening process with cashew cheese, this time sesame cashew cheese or cashew sesame seed, that will make it firmer and firmer. And if you keep it in the fridge for a while, you always make sure that you put some salty water, very light, or vinegar water on top and cleanse it a little bit, because the bacteria like to sit on top, and they could make a mess with the cheese, and then you won't like the cheese anymore. So it's important for conservation of cheese to cleanse it regularly, every other day or 3 days or so, lemon water or vinegar water, just to make sure nothing happens. And then it gets riper and riper, and the flavor gets more mature, and so on. And here I show you where I store it. This is not professional equipment. They are really great equipment you can buy. But just for my home use, I have a little trick here. I have a little container with a lid that can be closed. Yeah? It's very practical. Yeah? That can be put in the fridge. Easily, the cheese it's okay with the cheese. And here, to put for one batch of cheese, as you have seen the ring mold, I put this on the bottom, and then I'll show you what I do with the cheese. Put it on top of the cheese, on top of the baking paper. I'll show you in a moment. Here. Whoops. Yeah, that should be done. Should be done directly into here, because now I have a little problem. Let me see how I do it. Oh, I know, I have an idea, I know. I do it like this. Very simple. Fill it again, and put this on top. Put the container on top, and then chop like this. And then you have it in the right way. See, yeah. So that this can sit in the fridge, and I can put the lid on top, and here is space for another ring mold. It's all good sizes. It's my equipment for cheese making. And then I can wait until 2 days or so until it's firm, take it out of the ring molds, and enjoy my cheese. Yeah, I hope you like my presentation. You can also subscribe MD Vegan on YouTube and have another recipe every single day. And I hope to see you soon, maybe on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram or Twitter.